Hello there, my name is eluukkanen, and today we are going to be talking about why I believe Digimon is one of the best animation series made for children. Of course, this is the original intention of the anime. But I wanted to talk about this. I have very much been thinking of doing this for the longest of time. And a very reason for it being that I was one of the young people that was watching this when it was airing when I was younger. And I just recently rewatched it, the first season that we're going to be talking about. And I believe it's one of the best animation series for children. And that is a bold claim. And in this stream, I hope I'm able to show it that it's actually true. One of the things that is going to make it difficult is the fact that because of the copyright things and such, even showing a little bit of the footage, which might get people actually excited about the series, gets this whole stream gone, done, destroyed. So I cannot unfortunately do that. However, if you have even slightest of interest after of me discussing this, of course publicly with you, you can of course comment here and we discuss together. But if you have even slightest interest, I recommend to check it out. Because, on the looks of it, on the surface level, it kind of looks very simple. It looks quite, of course this is sort of like a child appealing, sort of like an art style. The creatures have big eyes and sort of like that. And that is of course the surface level, but I think it succeeds. This series succeeds with the idea that it makes people to go to a world that is unknown to them. They survive in this world, they are in this world. This is one of the best series that does this. I know there are so many animes that try to go to this sort of like, hey, we are surviving in a new world. Some people just get teleported to a new world and what happens to them. This series, on my mind, does it the best way, and I'm going to be explaining you why in a short notice. Let me just write over here. Welcome to our live stream today. Yes, we are doing a live stream about this. I wanted to talk about this in quite some time. This series was originally made in 1999, so it's quite an old series, but I still think it's one of the best. I still think it's among the best series, and some of you people might know that, of course, I've done I've done some remakes on it. You are in the background listening some of them for a game connected to this. It's one of the best series, I tell you. And this is a very big reason why I am talking about this. I want to really perhaps get people that are not interested in it right now to get perhaps to watch it, because there's some great aspects to it. The story and the characters are fascinating. Of course, it has its mistakes, it has its flaws like any series. But I think there are some good parts to it. So let me just update the whole background over here, because we are live streaming this. Yes, indeed. And yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Please let me know if you have any opinions about what I talk here. If, of course, in comments or in chats, I'm ready to answer them. And without further ado, I think we are soon going forward. I will be just putting few things over here. I will show actually what I'm doing. Yeah, I will just show it rather than tell it. So, writing here, Digimon Season 1, Digimon Anime. The thing is that this is the copyright protection on this is so tight that I cannot actually even show any kind of footage on it, so it's going to be me talking about it. However, I'm going to be talking it as truly as I can, and with perhaps in a way that it gets you interested. Right, here we go. And still live stream. Live, here we go. And let me put some options over here, and then we're able to start this whole thing. But yes, Digimon. So the story begins. Let me just get you some background. The story begins in the time when there's the company, what was it, like Bandai Namco? I don't remember the original company that created Digimon, but they wanted to make this sort of Tamagotchi for boys, especially for boys. Of course for girls as well, but like the main advertisement audience was boys. There have been Tamagotchis in the past, of course, but they haven't been made for this sort of boys, and they made it very, like, there were fights and such. You can actually fight with the creatures, and that was a big point, and still is a big point of the whole anime. And of course later on, but they wanted to really push it, like Pokemon tried to push it at the same time. So they made an anime about it. They made a lot of different games about it. There was a lot of different stuff happening around this whole thing, and that's what they worked on. And they wanted to make this sort of anime that promotes, of course, like every single Japanese anime thing, they always wanted to a little bit promote it. So they made this whole thing. And I don't know what sort of luck struck for it, but it actually became good. The writer for it, I want to actually find a writer for it. Writer for Digimon Season 1, because I've seen this name in some places, and the writer for this, I think, is a phenomenal person. Of course, he had to collaborate with other people, but I want to kind of find him somewhere. So yeah, we are going to go through this, talk through this. Let me try to find, is there a storyline? Is there anyone that is credited for it? Anyhow. So this is Digimon series. Let me just open the window so you can see some stuff I'm looking at here. So the idea for the whole series is basically, like for Pokemon, in a sense, to be sort of a toy advertisement, but it, I think, succeeded even a bit better, because the whole season was about these children getting stranded on this sort of island, and kind of like a world that was kind of Alice in Wonderland sort of style, but combined with technology. And what I mean by technology is that there were like factories, there were trams in the middle of nowhere, there were phone booths. This sort of like surreal feel was combined with that, and I think very successfully actually. So that's what they did. Let's just put the volume a bit lower. And this is what they did. This is what they talked about it in a sense that like the world was. There were these, of course, creatures and such, which were these Digimons, but let me actually start from the beginning so it's kind of more clear. So the whole season really starts with the idea that the world is changing. There's this sort of a lot of natural changes, there's these big droughts, there's a big tsunami going around, and still these children in Japan, they are going through their summer camp. This summer camp actually turns out to be something different, of course, of course. And they go outside from their campsite, and they see that there's aurora borealis around the sky. There's this snowy weather, like a lot of snow have landed. Of course, children get excited about that, but at the same time, this weird phenomena happens, and they get transferred to this Digimon world, and that is how the people get into the land. So, simple so far, nothing too extravagant. This is the kind of setup phase. So in the first episode, they get kind of sucked into the world, and just like they meet the Digimon creatures first time, as they do, and there's this sort of back and forth with the creatures. They don't really understand what is going on, so they try to make understanding for the situation that is happening. And they find these sort of creatures that they can actually talk with them. They don't know much about the situation as well, other than that they were waiting for them a long time. Sort of like They can talk, they have sort of personalities of their own, and children as well. There's a lot of children characters in this animation, as you can see in the beginning. There's around, you can see the poster, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, plus another one joining later on. So there's a lot of cast members for this whole anime series. And still, everyone has distinct characters. They have their own roles, and they are able to really flesh them out and make them understandable characters when they go later on. Because in the beginning, of course, they don't know much about the situation. The main character tries to go around the world, tries to understand what is happening there, and they have to essentially just they look at the world. It's an island. It's called File Island. So get used to that. File Island. Essentially, they use technology words, when describing their locations, sort of like a brand mark of the Digimon. And then the world is like there are trees. There's these tropical trees around where they are, but they are like textures. So it was very interesting, this sort of like digital landscapes that they are in. So that's they don't understand what's happening, but they start to get to know these creatures, and suddenly they get chased by this great bug, which is called Kuvagamon. I'm going through this like the first episode to kind of give you sort of idea what this whole thing is. So this sort of creature approaches the heroes. Can you actually see it? Can you see it? Can people actually see what I'm actually seeing? No, actually they can't. Yeah, I will be actually changing that. Oh, that was weird. Here we go. So now you can see what I see. So, Kuvagamon, this creature, goes to them, tries to take them down, and of course they survive, but barely, because the creature is very powerful, and they understand that hey, there's bigger creatures out there. They have to kind of survive from it. They have to kind of be much more careful. The Digimon partners that they have, these sort of small creatures that go through with them and meet them originally first time. They try to protect them, but they really can't. They have to run away. And then they somehow escape and start to talk about the situation. And that is, I think, where the anime really starts to shine. The anime, the characters in it, they start to talk about survival. And realistically what is happening around themselves. So let me actually just get a picture over here. Digimon Season 1. Show these sort of characters, you can see them. So these characters start to talk about the situation and what do they think, what is happening around them. And it's kind of like the realistic talk, what they do. They talk about, one of them says that they should actually wait for the parents to try to, find them, which is a reasonable thing, because of course they think, some of them still think they are in the summer camp. And some of them say, this doesn't look like the summer camp that they normally expected to see, and this sort of back and forth, and then later on they think, hey, let's go at least somewhere, let's not stay in this one place if the bug creature is still chasing them and such. So that is, there's actually, the characters have the interactions, which is, on my mind, realistic, more realistic than in so many animes. In so many animations, characters just transfer inside of the world, and they don't have any sort of idea on what is happening around themselves. They don't actually think about what is happening, and everything just happens naturally. But here, you can kind of expect how these people would react. Some of them are really curious of the place. Some of them are very worried. Some of them want to actually, where are they? They want to call their parents. Some of them have mobile phones. They cannot, because of course there's no connection. So all of this is happening, and then one of the best things happens in the series, which actually drives the plot forward in future times, which is food. Food is a very major part of this series, I tell you. Food, and trying to find food and eat enough. Because the thing is, I tell you, I've been in an army in the past, and such, in these sort of forest survival environments, and have to think about doing food rations. And when growing older, I actually got to appreciate this sort of aspect of this series, because because the fact is that when you are in a survival environment, food is one of the very major important things that drives you forward. Like, of course, if you are just sitting on your couch, everything is safe and cozy, you don't really think about too much on the food side of things. But here it's a major plot point. The characters really try to find food, and they get actually in trouble because they try to find food in this place. They try to fish and such, and they still have, in the beginning of the season, some emergency rations with them. So like, this is a major plot point, and I very appreciate this, that they actually look at this. And even one of the characters has this sort of survival set, which I looked at some of the camping equipment. He had like these sort of Swiss knives and this sort of canned food, and I was like, hey, that actually looks like a realistic surviving kit. And he had like a flashlight and such, and I was like, hey, yeah, they actually put some effort to that. So there was a lot of discussion on the survival aspects, and they tried to find them their place in this world. And after the first 2 episodes, which is just about understanding the world, trying to go around, and these children's reactions, they get to know about their digital pals, which are their partners. They get to understand a few things about them. One of them is that they can do an evolution, digivolution, I suppose that is the right word. Of course, this is sort of like a thing what they do in this series is they have a certain kind of Digimon, and like in some of the franchises, there's like the weaker version, then there's a more powerful version, and they get evolved. Interesting thing about the Digimon is that once they, depending on how you treat them, they grow to be a certain type, and at the same time, when you make them a certain type, they can also devolve. They can go back to a form, which is different compared to Pokemon, which essentially had these creatures always get higher stats, higher boost, and get in the higher status. But in this, they actually go up and down significantly. So that is they kind of understand that as one creature attacks them again, and one of the main characters called Taichi has to fend off against this creature. So first they get to this world, they get to understand it, they think about survival, and then about these creatures, which they grow tighter bonds as they travel around this island, kind of wandering off and trying to understand what is happening. And essentially the first evil villain they meet is this creature, which is actually, the design of it I actually really much like. So first they fend off against an actual devil. Yeah, well, and I do like the design of this creature a lot. Like, it's very, like, the long hands look like menacing. Like, it actually looks like a devilish creature. And this was what this whole thing about Digimon, that they have actually pretty cool designs, some of them, and pretty terrifying looking as well. So this is the worst villain that actually controls the island that they are on, and he finds out about the children at some point in the island, and tries to fend. He controls the island with these sort of flying saucers that are like these rotors in a machine, and he sends them forth, and they touch neutral Digimon, other creatures around the island, and take them control and such, and he sort of manipulates everything around us. So the first very major moments is a fending off against this sort of villain, and they learn to understand that this once he wants to take them down. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth in the episodes of the distance their children going on in the world. They find different creatures, they help them out sort of way, and the different sort of characteristics of the series. The children get to people know them better, because of course they get their backstories and such shown a little bit of. Actually show if I can see them. DG Destined. Here we go. Can I show, like, okay, this is I suppose a good picture. You can see them all. So these are the main characters. The small one is that's this flying bat sort of creature, and there's his brother, older brother. Then there's this the oldest of the group, which is tries to be the sort of like a guardian person. Of course, he's still young, but the oldest of them, though, so he tries to really like be the ground on the grounds person. Then there's this sort of like a fearless leader sort of person in here middle, who is kind of a protagonist. Then there's the other the girl that is like very action oriented as well, he in action. And then there's the other girl that tries to be really like is expecting, of course, looking at him you can really understand what these personalities are. And then there's the computer person behind that. They all have names and such, of course, in Japanese different and in English different, but on the sake of clarity, these are the people. And they really flesh out these people in the series. Like there's a lot of like the beginning developments of like this. When you have a children's series, you want to have the series to talk about issues that connect to children themselves. And with the two characters on the left, you can see the Yamato and the TK, the green dude, and the t-shirt dude, the sort of the brothers. And they had split. The family was split. There was a divorce between the father and mother, and it is actually a big point in the story, because the older brother feels protective of the younger, and the older brother has lived with the father, and the younger brother has lived with the mother. So you can see sort of the personalities that differ. The older brother has to, in very young age, try to like to care for himself. He does the food for himself and such, later on shown in the series. And the younger one is a bit protected and such, and has much more, of course, a mother takes care of her and such. So like this is sort of like what happens with these characters, and that's sort of like the conflicts they have as they are divorced children. That is a very interesting sort of point. Then there's the main character. He has a sister as well, the Taichi, in the middle and center of the group, and which of his sister is going to be much involved in the later on series. He has this sort of like he doesn't really think about the consequences, want to just be full of courage, and that leads to him a lot of trouble. But of course, he's able to actually make decisions quicker than others. The quite opposite of him is the Joe with the glasses, the person that is the oldest of the group and tries to really be ground to earth with the decision making. And of course the other girls, there's the Sora, that is sort of like other adventurer sort of like person, that is this sort of person, and her conflict is very much with her mother, that is overprotective. And then there's sort of orphan child, that the computer kid in the background, the very small, behind the girls, the Easy. And then there's what is the name of the other female with the purple dress and such? But yeah, like she's very much she's actually from America, or like has lived there much, and it's a very different sort of view to the whole thing compared to others. So that is what is happening with these characters and such in this series, and these are the things that these characters go through. We have had a very quiet stream so far, I suppose. It might not be the most important topic that people are interested about, and I suppose that is alright. I just wanted to talk about this and do a stream at least once a day to do something different. But yeah, that is what happenings in the series with the characters, and it's hard to explain. I very much recommend you to check it out to see what the series is about, because there's these few things which I like. One of them is the survival aspect that I already talked about, the characters that I already very much said. If I'm able to make at some point for my own children's series about children's and such, with their personalities and such to show, I want them to be kind of have the realistic mindset as in this series, and very different defining features. In other series afterwards, this is just the beginning of the series, there's actually 50 episodes of it, I just started watching again and I do like it, not just nostalgia standpoint, I do believe this is a very good series. They actually are trying to do at the moment, Digimon 2020, they're trying to do this sort of new series, sort of like, as you can see, we can actually find it. Yeah, in 2020 they tried to reboot this whole thing with this sort of like, as you can see, the characters look the same, but they are essentially not. Which is, I personally am not interested in this sort of much, because the original script writer who was part of the original series is not part of this anymore. So it's kind of a sad thing, and at the same time, it's not the same. I've tried to look at some of the information and such, it doesn't really interest me that much. The original animation is much, I prefer it much more, but so they try to reboot it, and they try to put more information, like they really try to push this, but I think they cannot. There's not much like the way they are marketing it, I think they're alienating some of the old people that are watching, and at the same time they are not doing the best to try to get the new people in, I believe. So perhaps this works in Japan, but I don't know, does it work in the West? I don't know, like the Digimon franchise overall, it has had this sort of weird way of how they work with the West, and they are really not doing much on it, focusing on. They very much focus on the Japan side of things. So as you can see, they've tried to do them, they have grown up and such, they had this sort of own anime and such. But that's about it, and I think I didn't really personally enjoy this one. The new attempts, because the old series, the spirit of it, how do they make the plot, even around this sort of toy commercial anime, which it is a toy commercial anime. Digimon is originally made for toys and such, like Pokemon and everything else, as you can see. Here we go. There are some toys, yay! And especially this creature in the anime very much were made to look like a toy on my mind. It looks like a toy, I tell you that much. I was very much interested about the toys. Actually never bought a Digimon toy, to be honest. I was never interested about that. But the series was good. I really liked the series overall of its, the creatures and the actual story that they used with the creatures and the themes, because they actually made it so that there was this sort of conflict between the characters. There was a conflict between the villains, which were sort of good, sometimes not always, and such, and they really, I think, made good job with what they had to work with. And it's still remembered at this moment of time for the people who watched it in the original times, and they try to push it, but I don't know, are they going to succeed in it though? Only time will tell. So series went forward. There's this new series which I'm not interested in. They try to do all the animes, like, let me just show you season 3 as example. Like, there have been different seasons with different plots, different characters, of course. They tried, of course, it's what they do and such, that's what they do. And some of them are like, some of them are not. Personally, I've not really watched after the second season, which still had the original people in it. But some have continued, I suppose. Well, that's my take on it. I don't want to bore you too much, because, if there's outside people who don't really know about this series, I don't want to bore you to death about this. But this is what I wanted to share. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully this was something that might have interested you. And if you want to see more of this, I recommend to watch it. I personally am currently watching, watched the second episode, and I already liked it quite a lot. There's I actually want to talk about, before I go, the different versions of it. I'm watching the Japanese version. Do not watch the English version as the first timer, because you might get the wrong impression. The English one was made by Fox Kids, and they re-edited it a lot. They added different musics, which I hated, because it destroyed, I think, the balance of the episodes. Like one of the episodes which I remember very fondly is they went to this sort of like a factory, as you can see. And the episodes, when I looked at the American versions, the English versions, it felt to go quite more quicker than the versions from the Japanese, because the music in Japanese actually made the atmospheric much better. They had a lot of silent moments, which for some reason the American version is just like music all the time, no pauses, everything is just music, music, music. I don't get it, I don't understand it, but for some reason they did it. I think it's because of the mentality. They think that the children are so kind of not that wise that they just cannot be on their own for a few seconds of silence. I don't know. But Japanese version, it has the good music, it has the sort of realistic feel. The English version is not that great. I personally would not watch it in English. I would watch it in subtitles or with Japanese language. And that's what I'm currently doing myself with this. I'm currently going to the episode 2, and there's as you can see, there's a lot of episodes. One of the bad things I believe on this is because they have this sort of Tamagotchi thing. They have the virtual pet aspect on it, and the virtual pet, when you have these machines, like originally when they have them, of course they eat, they do feces even and such. So they connected to full episode of that because of course that's their past. Wasn't really interesting on my mind on this, but still they did it, and they went through with it. However, I think it's still worth watching. The characters are interesting, the plot is interesting, and I think it's one of the, combining to looking at other animes, if you are wanting to watch something, especially under this time that you might have nothing to watch, it might be good to watch. You just watch a few episodes, if it interests you, don't watch it. I suppose that's right. That's what you want to do. But I recommend it. I wholeheartedly do. But hey, thank you for watching this small 30-minute stream I wanted to do. And hopefully it interests you to watch even more. We're going to be doing more stuff later on. Thanks for watching. Wherever you are, whoever you are, I wish you good day. See you later.